Hey guys, welcome to a brand new lesson in psychology from CBSE and CRT's textbook. And this chapter is known as Meeting Life's Challenges. So, let's talk about challenges today. All of us experience a variety of challenges in our everyday. These could be related to the relationships that we experience, could be related to the academics that you're into, or some friendships. Sometimes it is also financial in nature, sometimes it is to do with health. All of us experience challenges of all kinds. But more important than the challenges which we experience is how we truly cope with it. So, are your coping strategies on your fingertips, guys? This chapter will take you through a range of experiences of feeling all the feels of stress. Okay, what are the implications of those? So, how is it that stress is truly felt? It is felt at a cognitive level, at an emotional level, at a physiological level, which is biological, and also a psychological level. So, it will raise awareness on the kinds of stressors that we experience in our everyday life, where they really stem from, as well as some essential coping strategies to make you stronger. Let's go. So, as we experience this lesson together, this time I will be highlighting the important keywords so that you don't miss out on anything. And these notes are made straight off CBSE and CRT's textbook, guys, which is made available to you. So this should be enough to suffice for your board exams. Also, it's my two penny to you to not really indulge in buying those course books which are like guides in the form of guides, as most of their content is incorrect. Also, it's a lot less. They do not quite stick to word limit as requested, so I would suggest that you don't quite use those guides for learning answers. Make CBSE your Bible. But yes, of course, those guides are brilliant when it comes to additional questions. So you can truly use them for practicing questions itself. Let's look at the definition of stress. Yes, can you believe it? I never thought that we'll actually define stress someday because we feel it all the time. But here truly is what the definition of stress is all about. It is actually the pattern of responses which an organism is making towards an object, which is some stimulus. It could be either a person, it could be an experience, it could be an object, it could be an event. It's anything that is actually disturbing your body's equilibrium or your physical body's equilibrium, and it exceeds your capacity or your ability to cope. So it is essentially something that you cannot cope with, and it feels very overwhelming. It feels out of hands, and you feel like physiologically you are losing it. You cannot deal with it. Okay, so a interesting individual here who is called Hansel is actually a stress theorist, and he is the father of modern stress research, who spoke about stress being a non-specific response. Sometimes we don't know why we're responding the way we do, which is why it's non-specific. And it is especially of your body. So sometimes, without really knowing that you're stressing out, your body responds to it more than your own physical mind, right? More than your cognitive mind. And how does it really show you? It probably gives you sweaty palms, sweaty feet. It gives you probably some dizziness in the head, or it gives you a racing heartbeat, right? So it's this non-specific response of your body to the demands of, that is regardless of the cause of the threat. So we don't quite know what is the cause of the threat, but you can feel the threat, and the individual will respond with the same physiological patterns of reaction towards it. Okay, so this physiological pattern of reactions is, of course, like we just discussed, it could be a high BP or a low BP, it could be a high heartbeat or a low heartbeat, so forth. So what about the etymology of this thing, of the word stress? It has this origin in the Latin word, guys, called as strictus. Strictus means that tightness of muscles, okay, of some kind of constriction within your own body. You see how you feel tensed when you feel stressed? You probably clench your fist and your jaw or your butt, and you just like stand tight, and you feel this tightness, this resistance within your body is what stress is all about. Now, of course, there are a lot of stressors in our everyday. Sometimes maybe it's my best friend giving me the stress, or my employer giving me a stress, or let's say that the nest which the birds created on my AC, in which is probably laid eggs. That's a stressor because the birds, the little tweets, right up at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, do not let me sleep. Now, isn't that a stressor? So yes, stress is anything that is causing your body to give the stress response. Okay, so here we go. It is the body stress response towards an object. Of course, guys, there's something known as strain. Now, strain is different from a stressor. Strain is the reaction to that stressor. Okay, so however you respond, sometimes, yes, you can long withstand stress and you can stand calm, but sometimes you do overreact and you give it out like aggressively. And that is strain. It's because you've been feeling the weight of it for a while. And that's how it is, that reaction to the external stressor. Then, of course, you need to know another word called Eustress. Please note that right now we're just exploring some terms so that you're able to better understand the chapter. Okay, so please just look at these as some important terms which are used across the chapter, which will be very helpful to you. Okay, we have Eustress. Eustress is the term which is used to describe the level of stress which is good for you. Have you noticed how sometimes when you prepare for an exam last minute, you actually do very well on that exam? It's very ironical, but you're able to do good for yourself. So that is the good stress which you take. And that good stress is almost like an asset to you because it gives you that ability to do your best and give your peak performance. Okay? This also helps you to manage those minor crises. For example, if last minute your principal asks you to get up on stage and talk about an important concept to your peers. Now, obviously, arousal will activate systems within and you might want to give your best. So Eustress helps you take care of that in the last minute and actually gets you to peak your performance. Eustress is very different from distress. Eustress is the good or the positive stress. However, this stress, guys, is what causes manifestations of stress and wear and tear within the body. So it is honestly the manifestation of stress that causes the body's wear and tear. That is called as distress, which is the negative stress. So with these terms, we will now move ahead with the chapter and discuss some important aspects of stress. Have you got everything so far? If not, please pause and please rewind and go through whatever it is that you need to. These are the important keywords. I hope you've marked them along with me. Let's move ahead. Okay, so we'll now quickly look at the physiological meaning of stress. Guys, physiologically, the stressor could be external or it could be internal. However, it depends upon the individual's biological, psychological reactions to the stressor, which is how and what will help with the coping of the stress. So the result will be the challenge which needs to be overcome without acquiring any illness or strain. Right? So the meaning which this figure right ahead of you, what this figure largely depicts here, is giving you the fact that stress is something which depends upon the perceived ability of the individual. So if the individual is perceiving the stress as something that they can quite readily deal with or cope with, okay, based on the cognitive theory of stress, then the individual's response to the stressful situation itself, it depends upon how he's perceiving it and how they interpret and appraise it. So appraisal of the stressor here becomes essential for the individual to deal with it effectively. So each time you experience a stressful situation, how is it that you largely cope with it, guys? Take a moment to ponder upon and reflect. How do you really perceive your stresses? Do you magnify it? Do you glorify it? Or do you pity yourself and make small talk small of yourself? What is it that you largely do as a go-to? That will tell you so much about this and about yourself. Take a moment to do this and we'll head on to the next topic, which is stress appraisals. Up next, as we look at stress appraisals, this idea was given by Lazarus, guys. And what he did was, he said that every time we experience a stressful situation, we like to appraise it. Okay, we like to approach it with either two of these ways: a primary appraisal and a secondary appraisal. Okay, so a primary appraisal is whenever you go into a new environment, wherever you experience, let's say, go to a friend's birthday for the first time, you kind of scan the environment for whether if it's positive, neutral, or negative. Okay, whether if this is some place where you can actually have fun, let loose, do you need to stay like neutral, lay under the carpet, or is it negative? Is it actually a threatful environment where you might just get bullied or you might get picked on, right? So you kind of appraise the situation, the environment, you scan it just to check on the consequences which it might get you. Okay, negative events are appraised for the possible harm, threat, or challenge. So you check out the environment, and I'm sure all of us do this primary appraisal whenever we head out anywhere. We also have something known as a secondary appraisal. Secondary appraisal is assessment of the coping abilities and resources which you have to deal with whatever harm, threat, or challenge might come your way. So let's say that the environment actually is negative and it might pose a threat onto you. So, how prepared and willing are you to deal with the challenge which might just come your way is what the secondary appraisal speaks to you about. Okay, it's speaking about the resources which could be either mental, physical, personal, or social, which you own to deal with it effectively so that you can safeguard and defend yourself. That is the secondary appraisal. Of course, as we walk along life, we have primary and secondary appraisals, but how we appraise a situation depends on other factors as well. Now, what are these factors? Yes, past experiences, they play a very important role. If in the past, maybe you appraised something to be threatful, but it turned out to be kind to you, you might change your mind about it. Or in the past, if a threatful situation was full of harm, but the way you deal with it helped you, so another time around, it's going to help you too. And again, right? So past experiences play a crucial role. Also, whether if the stressful event is perceived to be controllable. If it's something that's out of control, you might want to back off and walk away or deal with it in a different way than you did another time. So the perceptibility of the event as controllable or uncontrollable also plays a very important role in appraising the situation. So guys, the truth is that all of us, we experience stress reactions in our everyday, right? All of us are experiencing stressors and therefore we react to them. It could be, being nitpicked or being called out or being backstabbed or being, outcasted or being bullied in some cases or being laughed at. So there are all kinds of stressors which we can feel. For example, I feel very tired and I know that I won't be able to work out, but I decided and I told myself to work out every day. Now, could this give me a tad bit of stress? Maybe yes, right? For missing out my workout. So there are all kinds of stressors which we experience. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're large. But the perceptibility of it is what, according to the cognitive theory, is what makes all the difference. But how do we truly really react to these? We're going to discuss them in the following 4 domains: physiological, emotional, behavioral, and cognitive. So when it comes to physiological reaction, how do you think your body works whenever you experience stress? So at the physiological level, guys, what truly happens is that your body experiences something known as arousal. Okay, this arousal, it kind of is stress related, of course. And what it does is your hypothalamus gets initiated. So this hypothalamus, it kind of gets involved with the autonomic nervous system. Here, the autonomic nervous system, it comprises of the adrenaline gland, which releases catecholamines. These get released into your bloodstream, okay, which leads to a lot of physiological changes. These physiological changes lead to either you standing in the situation and fighting with it head on, or actually running away from the situation and fighting it off. Okay, so the fight and the flight responses get activated due to the catecholamines which are released into your bloodstreams. So the second pathway here is that your pituitary gland gets activated. And when this gets activated, it kind of secretes corticosteroids, right here, which are basically cortisol, the release of cortisol, which actually provides you with a lot of energy to deal with the scenarios which are ahead of you, which you need to deal with in the here and now. These are the physiological reactions, guys. Okay, we're going to look at some of the emotional reactions now. Obviously, emotionally, what might happen to you is you might experience fear or anxiety, right? You might experience embarrassment, anger, depression, or even denial. So let's say that you're at this friend's birthday and let's say that you're eating cake and you spill some of it, and the next thing you actually slipped on the cake that you spilled. Is that going to raise emotional reactions in you? You might just feel embarrassed because probably you've met a lot of new people for the first time, and because of that because of this emotional reaction of embarrassment, it might also create a physiological reaction, which is you might want to get up and play along or laugh at yourself, or you might get embarrassed with cherry pink cheeks and you might want to run away from that scenario, right? Okay, behaviorally, what might happen again when you are caught in such a scenario is that you might want to be in a confrontative action, wherein you might want to get up and really fight that scenario, which is, you might want to confront the situation itself. So laughing at yourself in that situation, or maybe, dealing with it effectively in a mature way could be the confrontative action. On the contrary, withdrawing from the situation, which is when you actually run away feeling embarrassed from that threatening event, wherein you might just feel like so many people, so many eyes are scrutinizing you and observing you, is the flight response. So the responses could only be two, which could be either fighting it out or flighting it out. Okay, that's the behavioral reaction. And the last thing, guys, which you look at is the cognitive reaction. Cognitively, what you'd like to do is either you would like to, stand there in the belief, whether if you want to, you might just want to check on this scenario and see whether if it's something that is giving you harm or any kind of threat. So your cognitive mind might tell you that, hey, this is just nothing. It's no big deal. And people slip and skid all the time. And it's just an accident. So you won't see it as harmful or threatful. On the contrary, your belief could be that, oh, this is the most embarrassing thing that could have ever happened to you. Being a teen, you might want to magnify it, right? And you might think that's something that is not in your control, and a lot of people will probably remember you by this little episode, which is slipping on the cake at your best friend's birthday party, right? So these responses, they kind of lead you to experience lack of concentration. You might just get intrusive thoughts. You might get repetitive or morbid thoughts, which come to you over and over again, and they tend to mess with your peace. So that is the cognitive reaction of this type. So these were the few stress reactions which we just covered together, guys. I hope that this was helpful, and I'm sure that this is something that you all experience when you actually are caught in a scenario like this. Think about it. Think about another situation which was a stressful situation, and your task is to kind of recall the physiological, emotional, behavioral, and cognitive reactions which you personally gave to it. Think about it and pin it in the comments for me to know and explore too. Thank you.